So let's see if this is working. Now I think we're live.
Oh,
Okay, so welcome to Project Vayner, the documentation of my journey towards Vayner Media in New York City. Today we have a live episode with a guest, and I'm just going to introduce him. This guest has been an entrepreneur since the age of 13, digital entrepreneur since 1998. He has over 20,000 followers on Instagram. He also creates content on platforms like YouTube, Facebook, Snapchat, Periscope, has his own podcast. He's a live video guru. He's always helpful and brings a lot of value. So from California, USA, welcome to the vlog, Todd Bergin.
yes. Hey, how are you?
Was it the correct description?
Yes, it's Bergin instead of Bergin, but otherwise, yeah, you got it.
Okay. So first of all, I'm grateful for having you here, that you're taking time from your busy schedule to be on this live.
Well, thank you for having me. It's a great pleasure.
Great. I was checking your LinkedIn profile, and I know you are doing a lot of stuff. So if you would describe it yourself, what are your title, what you're working with?
Well, I mean, I have 2 daily podcasts, and so I do a lot of podcasting, and one of them has to do with Instagram marketing and education for business owners and entrepreneurs. It's called Grammar School. And then the other one's called Entrepreneur Live Video. And basically I talk about live video, and both of them are over a year old now. So I'm pushing probably 900 episodes between the two of them in just over a year. And I do a lot of live video. If you go to my YouTube channel, you'll see a lot of old live videos that I did where I would TriCast, and I would go to Facebook, YouTube, and Periscope, sometimes Instagram at the same time. So sometimes it'd be Quadcast. But since about May of 2018, I've pretty much only gone live on Instagram Live. And I really like Instagram Live. I use it a lot. But in 2019, I am going to get back into doing more live video on YouTube, particularly.
Right. Would you say that Instagram is your biggest focus of the platforms?
It has been since May. It doesn't mean it is overall, but I have been working it a lot since May. But moving forward, I'm going to be doing a lot on YouTube.
Right. Do you know like how many videos you have done in total since you started?
I've not ever counted. I'm sure if you count all of my work in Snapchat and Instagram and everywhere, you're probably talking several thousand, maybe.
Right. I'm just curious because I know that there might be people that are watching that are not can't imagine a life without internet and videos. And right. I know there was a time before internet. So how did you start doing what you do right now? Did you start with just one thing and then it was more and more, or did you start with everything at once, or how?
Yeah, I got started promoting a coaching business that I was working on where I was going to help people get started as an entrepreneur. And in promoting that, I just really started pushing the envelope on live video and podcasting and learning as much as I could about all that. And it pivoted my interest into being more about podcasting and live video and video in general than about coaching people how to get out of their day job. So it just kind of naturally happened, but I do tend to get fully immersed in everything that I work on. So when I build a studio, I don't just get a little mixer and a couple cords and a microphone. I try to go for like a real radio sounding experience. Same thing with video. I don't just stop at buying a webcam and okay, now I'm going to go live. I'm going to get, I mean, I have a camcorder, an HD camcorder over here that I'm using right now, that I had to switch to very quickly to go live with you because the camera that I was going to use failed on me. So I had to quickly make that adjustment. But I've got a DSLR camera, I've got a mirrorless camera, I've got lots of tools at my disposal, and which is nice because like today when I realized that the mirrorless camera I wanted to use to go live with you was not going to cooperate, I was able to quickly switch it out, switch a few cords and save the day rather than cancel. So when you rely on one thing, it can be perilous. But as you push the limit, you end up having a lot of tools in your toolkit. And that's just not to save the day when something bad happens. It's just that sometimes I want to use the camcorder. Sometimes I want to use the DSLR. Sometimes I want to use the mirrorless. It depends on what is going on, what I'm trying to capture, and what I'm interested in producing at that time. But yeah, I mean, I get fully immersed, and I will spend money. I mean, a lot of people won't spend money. I'm not rich, but I will spend money. I will find ways to get what I need to get the job done so that I can do it the way I want to do it and make my mark the way I want to make it, rather than kind of just not pushing the limits. I like to push the limit.
Right. I'm very thankful for that you found a solution for that, and that you are didn't cancel this. I'm just using the camera on the computer and the cheap microphone on my camera. So yeah, you have to start where you are and then build it up from there.
Exactly. And you can build up slow or you can build up fast. Either way is good. I just tend to build up fast. I don't, I just always have my foot on the gas.
So for a guy that's just starting with the live video, like for me, is there any special equipment you would advise me buying?
Well, I mean, it just depends on what you have and what your budget is and how comfortable you feel doing it. You can get really nice webcams. It's a great place to start. You can get really nice webcams for under $70. And there's nothing wrong with that. I do recommend a big focus on the audio. Yeah. Audio is the foundation of good video. And if you don't have good audio, then you're going to lose people. People want to be able to hear a nice, crisp, good sound. So I do believe in investing more in audio than in video, even for live video. Get your audio squared away to where you want it. And it never seems to end. Like there's always more that you can do. And, yeah. I just am always pushing. I mean, I pretty much am where I want to be for a while, but at some point I probably will try to up the game. I mean, we'll see at that point.
Right. So obviously you do a lot of live videos, and is your company's name Todd.Live, right?
Yes.
Yeah. And so what would you say is the biggest advantage of making live videos? Like, what's the power of doing it?
It's a great way to connect with your audience in real time so that you can see comments and interact with them. They can interact with you and they can feel like they're part of the program. You can make a personal connection with them because they can see your face. They can see, or they can hear the way you speak and the way you take on certain topics and the way you use your hands. And I mean, there's just so much information that people can get from you when they watch a video, and when it's live and they have the opportunity to communicate with you and participate in the show, even more so. But it's a great way to have that connection with the audience and build an audience pretty quickly, that, people that are interested in your niche.
Right. So what would be like the things that you need in terms of software? I know you have a special program that you use when you're sending live to use graphics while doing it.
Yeah, I use Wirecast. That's pretty advanced. the first thing that people are going to want to do getting started in live video is just probably use their phone. And as they build what they do, I mean, there's all sorts of options out there. There's OBS, there's live stream, there's Wirecast. I like Wirecast. That's what I use. And I, that's pretty advanced stuff, but everyone in your audience can get there. It's just, you're not going to start there. It's not going to be a place where you get started. I mean, I started with 4 iPads, so I could go live in multiple places. Now those iPads are kind of irrelevant because I can use Wirecast to go to all 4 places. But I started there. I started with 4 iPads. So
speaking of that, how do you do when you are doing your live videos? I know you're doing on multiple platforms at once. Is it the same with podcast? Do you use the audio from a live to make a podcast episode of it?
Sometimes, not always, but sometimes. I mean, it's a great way to repurpose content if it makes sense. It doesn't always make sense though. So it's kind of on a case by case basis.
Is it always like at least 2 things you're recording for, or is it sometimes that you're just recording for one specific thing, like only for the podcast, for example?
Well, most of the time when I'm recording for a podcast, I'm just recording for the podcast. You know, my shows are daily shows, and sometimes I'll sit down and record 30 episodes in one day. And so I'm not doing anything live there. It's just recording for the podcast.
And you're speak a little bit about your podcast, because I know it's called Grammar School, and it's not like grammar as in words, but as in Instagram. So you're giving away tips about Instagram.
Yes.
So for how long have you done that?
For about a year.
For about
over a year.
And how many episodes do you know?
Well, like I said before, I have 2 podcasts, Entrepreneur Live Video and Grammar School. Both of them I started just over a year ago, and between the 2 of them, I'm probably pushing 800, 900 episodes.
Right. So there's a lot of content to listen to if you're interested in growing your Instagram.
Yes.
And about social media, what would you say? Obviously, there's a lot of positive things about it when trying to grow both a business or a personal brand. What would you say are like the cons of social media?
The cons? Like the negatives?
Yeah.
You spend a lot of time there. You spend a lot of time on your mobile device. You never can get away from it. That's probably the negatives right there. Otherwise, it's mostly positives.
Right. Yeah, I think it's a lot of positive things as well, and I think that it kind of exposes how you are as a person. But as long as it's something that you stand for and nothing bad, it's just a good thing. Sure. I think. And as you said, to build connections, if it's to customers or just followers, friends, your community.
Exactly.
So do you have any big things that you have learned recently that you wish that you've learned a long time ago?
For me, it's probably just I haven't focused on YouTube in the 3 years that I've been doing this. I haven't really done much YouTube at all, and that's changing in 2019. So that's the big thing, is just that if I were telling somebody starting out to focus somewhere, it'd probably be YouTube over everywhere else, period. So that's probably the biggest thing.
So what's your thought about IGTV?
I don't really use it. I mean, it might come around, but I don't think it's that important right now. I think it's great that it's in Instagram. I'm a big fan of Instagram, and I think it has potential. And for the people that are using it right now, they're probably using it with great success. I just don't have the time to put into it for what I think I'm going to get out of it. So I just haven't really done a lot of IGTV at all.
Do you think there is a place for that, or is it going to die and only be vertical or horizontal videos?
That I don't know. I mean, we could all take a guess, but I think it's here to stay, and I think good things are coming, but we'll just have to wait and see.
Right. So as the people can see, behind you, you have a lot of equipment.
Yes.
So if we have a scenario, if someone comes into your room and steal everything, but you can keep 5 things, so you can still record, what 5 things would that be?
Well, they'd probably be my most expensive thing. So it'd probably be all 3 of my, I think there's 3 or 4 cameras back there. Probably my cameras and lenses. There's lenses back there that have value too. So it would be the cameras and the lenses for sure. But all that stuff back there, I would have to replace anyway because I use all of it. So
Right.
nothing back there is would be missed or would not be missed.
Mm. So how many equipment do you need the minimum to make a recording?
Well, all I need is this. I mean, I can do this and I can podcast,
Right.
I can do live video.
True.
This is the minimum. So beyond that, I mean, if I like what I have, so I mean, if anything happened to this stuff, I would be replacing it probably pretty close to what I have now.
And the maximum is no limit, right?
Yes, no limits.
And so what would you say if we leave the equipment stuff? Like if people are they are not used to being in front of the camera, but they want to create content and record videos, is there something they should think about when they start?
Yeah, just create content daily. Get your phone out of your pocket and just start working it and get used to talking to a camera, talking to which is kind of like talking to nobody in a sense, even if you have viewers, yeah, there are people out there, but still you're walking around just talking to a device. So just get used to it and be bold and unafraid and start conversing with people. I mean, it just starts with one and goes on from there.
Right. And we have a question here from the chat. There's a guy asking, how do you plan when you're recording multiple episodes in one day?
Well, that's podcasting when I do that. And I don't do a lot of planning. I have a spreadsheet that I keep and I put the titles of, well, I'll come up with ideas for a show and I'll make a title. And that's all I have. I don't even have a script. And so what I'll do is I'll pick a day, and today's going to be a podcast day. I'm just going to record as many podcasts as I can in one day. And all I have are titles. And when I start the episode, all I have is a title. And I do what I call one take recording, where I don't do any editing after the fact. So my episodes are 5 to 15 minutes long, and editing takes so long that if I decide there's something about the episode that I want to edit out, I just re-record it. And
right,
when I start the recording, I just have a title. And while the music's playing for the 30-second intro, I'm thinking about what I'm going to say. I have no clue what I'm going to say yet. And I just improvise the whole episode. And I do that on both of my shows.
Does that
so I don't
script?
I don't script. I don't write out. I don't have notes. I don't have an index card with bullet points. It's just turn on the recording and talk.
Has that come from experience, or has it always
Yes.
been like that?
No, the first podcast I ever did, I had more notes. It was more planned out, but I don't like any sort of content, whether it's just somebody talking or if it's an interview. Like right now, if I had you come on my show, I would not have a list of questions. It's all going to be in my head, and I'm just going to start the episode, and I'll know a few things about you so that I can get the intro going, but I'm not going to go by the numbers. And I did when I started. I mean, I get it. When you get started, you're trying to feel your way around and trying to learn this stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Then you need to have kind of a by the numbers thing. But the goal is to get rid of all that, because it's kind of a novice thing. And so when you get more comfortable with yourself and you get more comfortable with the process, more and more you can ditch the notes and the questions and the bullet points and the index cards and stuff, and you can just talk. I mean, if we're going to talk about live video for 2 hours, which I don't have time for today, but if we were going to talk about live video for 2 hours, I don't need a note. I've lived it for the last 3 years. And if I was going to ask you about live video, I don't need a note because I've done it for the last 3 years. So I don't have to have, I mean, and I can sense where the conversation's going. If you're going to talk about a certain thing, then I know where that's going to lead to based upon my own experiences. So when you're starting out, yes, you want to kind of watch how you go about it and kind of develop for yourself what your shtick is going to be, what your presentation is going to be, how you're going to carry yourself, what kind of show it's going to be, how you're going to go about if you're by yourself talking and carrying the whole show, or if you're having an interviewee or a guest come on, how you're going to carry it with them. But the goal is to get to a point where at the most, if you need anything, it's a sticky or it's an index card with just a few key points. But otherwise, I mean, you asked me before the show, do I want to go over with you a little bit over some of the questions or some of the things we could possibly talk about? And I said, no, we don't need to do any of that. That's where you want to get to. You don't need show prep. If I were going to do show prep today, it would have more to do with the format. Like my friend Owen Video does a lot of show prep, but he also has a lot of segments to his show. He'll have an opening part of the show where there's some banter, and then they'll completely flip, and he maybe has somebody that's a regular in his audience can come in and highlight their channel or their show or their product or whatever it is. And then that person leaves, and then somebody else comes in maybe for an interview, and then that person leaves, and then somebody else might come in. And so it's a very regimented show with a lot of different segments and a lot of moving parts. That requires some scripting, some planning, but the kind of broadcasting that I've done so far, I don't need to do any of that. Now, I would like to do more of the kind of stuff that Owen does, because it's more like a show on television, and but it's not a show on television. And that's the appeal of it. And very few people take it to the level that he's taken it, which means it's a great opportunity for the people that do. But he's a master at what he does, and I might be a master at what I do, but they're two different things. That makes sense.
Yeah. And it's great advice for me as well, as I'm just starting out with this. And you wanted to like minimize the text that you have, so it's more of a conversation.
Yes.
I also saw Ray that was asking the question. He says that sometimes when he invite a guest to a podcast, the guest wants to have the questions to be prepared.
Right.
So then you're still working with those questions, or can you come up with more questions around that, or how would you do that?
Well, yeah, I mean, look, if I had 10 questions if I had you as a guest on my show and I was going to have 10 questions, I would listen to what you're saying and see if we can take the conversation other places other than the 10 questions, because it makes for a better show. If I wouldn't expect to get a lot of guests, like if I had, let's say I had 10 questions and I just one at a time hit them all and then the show's over, I'm not going to have any viewers and I'm not going to have a lot of guests that are interested in that. People want a more conversational style. They want to be able to take it places. But it requires the guest, or I'm sorry, the host, to be a really good listener, because you want to pick interesting things that your guest talks about and explore them. And it takes a keen listener to do that while they're thinking about how they can take the show. That's the other thing. When you become a broadcaster, you have to find ways to kind of multitask within your own head, because you've got to be able to keep track of multiple things. Otherwise, you end up not hearing what your guest says. And when you don't hear what your guest says, you really get into trouble, because a couple things can happen. One, which becomes the most obvious, is if you ask a question that already has been answered. That was one of the first things I learned when I had Ross Brand come on the show 2 or 3 years ago. He came on my show and he said that's one of the key things when you're interviewing people is you want to really listen intently to everything they say, because you don't want to ask something that's already been answered. And a lot of times if you have like numbered questions, you're thinking more about your questions than you are about the answers that you're getting on the question you've already asked. And then you're not, it's happened to me before, but you're not really listening. You're thinking more about where the show's going to go. And then you ask a question that's already been answered. So you try to avoid that as best you can. And, it's all about being natural. I mean, if you treat live video like you're in a restaurant or a bar and you're having a conversation with somebody, but only there's people watching, right? So you want to just have a natural conversation. And I would venture to say that most people that are having a natural conversation are not doing that with notes and planned anything. They're just having a conversation.
Yeah, true.
So, yeah. So I was delighted to hear that that's how you wanted to do it.
Yeah. Yeah, that's what I'm striving for to do. And yeah, so try to create more of a conversation. And one thing that I was thinking of besides this is, do you have any specific thing now in 2019 that you're going to focus more on?
YouTube. Yeah. As I said, I'm making that a major part of my play this year, period.
Right.
Yeah.
And you're doing coaching as well?
I do. Yes, I do coaching on live video and podcasting. And I'll probably start doing some coaching on video content creation, just for recorded video, because I've been teaching myself how to do animations and really cool stuff that can make a YouTube video go from being mundane to a lot better. So I'll probably dabble in that as well.
Right. So when speaking of doing live videos like this and asking questions, would you say there is a big difference from doing it on social media compared to TV, or is it quite similar?
I'm not sure I understand what you're asking.
Like when you're, like, for example, if you're having a show on TV where you are sending at a specific time, is it a big difference from having that compared to doing a live video on social media, or maybe interviewing someone there?
Well, I haven't done TV, so it's hard for me to say. I've only done social media and, going live on Facebook, YouTube, Periscope, Instagram. I've been live on Meerkat and Blab and some other things, but comparing it to TV, that's not something I could do. I haven't done TV. I don't have any TV background.
Right. But you do have a background as an attorney, right?
I do, yes.
Yeah. So when did you do the shift from? When did you leave that for what you're doing now? And
Well, I didn't leave being an attorney to do this. I left being an attorney to do something else. So that was back in 2008, 2009. Yeah, I mean, I started doing this about three and a half years ago.
Okay.
So
Have you seen any big changes in that time, or are you kind of creating the content the same way as you did then?
there's some change. I wouldn't say there's been a tremendous a lot. I mean, it's usually feature related. Like, you know, if you go live on Facebook through Facebook's platform, when it started, all you could do is go live. Now you can add some lower thirds, or you could bring a guest in, or, you know, so it tends to be feature related, but there hasn't been any sort of universally just some crazy, insane change that's happened since I've done it, aside from maybe making feature related things that make it easier to go live, that sort of thing. But I don't know that there's any one thing that I could point to that I would say is like some major game changer that's happened over the last couple of years, aside from maybe Instagram Live. And even that, it's not that they did anything different. It's just that they added live to that platform, which is a good platform to have live on. I think Instagram Live is as strong or stronger than anything else, because of your ability to go live quickly with no equipment, to connect with people quickly, for them to connect with you quickly. Nobody needs any equipment. All they need is their phone. Most people already have that. And so you can quickly and easily go live. They can quickly and easily watch you. You can quickly and easily interact, and it's over. And there's no frills. There's no setup. I mean, it's just a matter of getting used to talking to your camera. It's that easy.
Right. Have you noticed any changes in the way that you speak to the camera and speak to the microphone since you started?
I mean, I have a lot more confidence myself. I'm not looking at the camera as much in this interview as I usually do. I've got my camera on a new tripod, and I don't like where it is, and I'm having to look too high, and I don't like it. But ordinarily I look right into the camera at all times. You know, also, I've never done a Google Hangouts broadcast, and I can't see any of the comments. I can't see who's in here or who's not. So I kind of feel like I'm blind in certain regards, because I can't see anything except for your picture. I can see a little tiny one of my picture, but you know, I'm very comfortable in front of after years of doing this, whether I have a camera or whether it's just a microphone or whatever, I can talk. I don't have any problem doing this whatsoever anymore. And I feel like every human being on the planet can get that comfortable. It's just a matter of doing it. You have to do it. And you have to just kind of loosen up and realize that no one broadcast is going to be a make it or break it broadcast. You know, especially when you're starting out. I mean, you got to start out somewhere, and, you know, 5 years from now, if you keep it up, you or anybody else who's out there that's watching your broadcast, if they do it, you know, start today, if it doesn't look as good as like some other people out there, that's fine. Come back and look at yourself in 5 years. If you keep it up and keep trying to master your craft, you're going to be amazed at how far you've taken it. And so that's the thing. I mean, even myself, I sometimes amaze myself at how far I've taken it, but that's part of doing it. I mean, whenever you do anything, you start riding a bike. First time you ride a bike, you're going to be wobbly and you're not going to really know how to do it. And 5 years later, you're going to be jumping things and riding great bikes and doing dirt trails and tricks, and, you know, your equipment will get better and your ability will get better. So same kind of a thing.
Right. So how do you usually treat the camera? Do you look into the camera like it's a person, or do you like just imagine that it's not there? Or
I just know where to look on my camera if I want to look into my camera. I don't really think of it as a person. I just think of it as I need to look at the camera, and I will go about doing that. Again, I've been playing with my setup, and I don't like the way it is right now. So I haven't been looking at the camera as much in this interview as I usually do. When I'm hosting the show too, I also will look at the camera a lot more. When I'm a guest, I feel a little more comfortable kind of wandering around and thinking about my answers and moving about. But when I'm the host, I definitely want to be looking at the camera at all times.
Right. So the things that you create when you're doing these videos, like the lower thirds that you were talking about, is it done in Photoshop, or what program do you use?
I use Photoshop for all of my art.
And you did you learn that after you started doing the videos, or is it something that you?
It's all self-taught, and it's just part of what I do. I see something somebody has, and I decide I want to figure out how they did it, and I go to Photoshop, or I go to ScreenFlow, or I go to Wirecast. I see things other people do, and I decide I have to do it, and I have to learn how to do it, and that's what happens. I mean, I just go and figure it out.
So how important is it to like have a specific color theme that you follow, or a specific style, or is it better to test different things? Or
well, yeah, I mean, testing's good, but you definitely want to do some branding. I mean, at some point you want to have a brand, and you want, you're going to have to pick colors that work, and you're going to have to pick a design that works. And so branding is very, very important. Yeah.
Have you like read something about that, or are you just testing and see what's working for you? Or
I watch what other people do. When I see other people doing something that I like, I try to copy it. And then once I figured out how to copy it, then I try to spin it into my own thing, so it's not a copy. So no, I don't read books on theory, and I don't get into history and this and that. I don't care about any of that. I'll go if I want to go on YouTube, if I want to have a YouTube channel and I want to figure out my branding for YouTube, I'm going to go on YouTube and I'm going to study other YouTubers, and I'm going to find things I like about this YouTuber, and I'm going to find things I like about that YouTuber, and this YouTuber, and that this one has good art, and this one has good music, and this one's got a camera that's doing things that I like. And I will take pieces from various people and try to create my own thing of the things that I like. Much like a musician will, Robert Plant and Led Zeppelin back in the day, they listened to blues, and they would hear things in blues music that appealed to them, and they knew where rock was going, and they would hear other rock and roll musicians doing this or that. And so they would take some blues, and they would take some classical. There's a lot of poetry, and there's a lot of, there's a lot of literature in Led Zeppelin music, ideas and things that came from very famous writers that they would kind of churn out their lyrics based off of old odes and parables and whatever. And so, they saw things, and they would bring pieces and say, okay, we want this, we want that, we want this. Now that we have all these ideas, let's play with it so that we can have our own thing. And Led Zeppelin is famous as being one of the bands that stole from everybody. I mean, they stole from everybody, but they created their own thing by stealing from everybody. So that's what a good artist does, is they get ideas from other people, and they try to spin it and twist it into their own thing. Some of them succeed and have their own thing. Some of them fail, and they're copycats, or they're not popular for whatever reason. But I just when I see something, I try to copy it. And then once I know how to copy it, I try to twist it and do a different play or a different take, or change colors, change things, and just try to create my own thing.
Yeah, that's a great advice, to see what you like about other things, and then just pick the things that you like and create your own style around that.
Yes.
Would you say that that way of looking at it, is that the same on different platforms, or is it more specific to YouTube? Or
It's pretty much everywhere. I do that everywhere. You know, if I'm on Instagram and I want to learn how to use Instagram, or I want to come up with clever content for Instagram, I will see what other people are doing and try to do my twist. Pretty much every platform, everything I do, that's how I do it.
Right. And speaking of Instagram, because you have a quite big account there, so do you have any tips for someone that wants to grow their Instagram account, if it's something specific they should think about?
Yeah, publish daily. I mean, start there, publish daily, use hashtags, comment on everybody's comments that comment on you. Pretty basic stuff,
Yeah.
but that will help you get the ball rolling pretty quick. At least as quick as you're going to get it rolling at that point. But yeah, posting daily, I think, is huge.
Have you found any limit of posting too much, or is it nothing called too much on Instagram?
Yeah, I think you can post too much. I think once or twice a day is the limit, but some other people post a lot more. I don't. I just choose for one. And it also depends. If I'm touring New York City and I'm taking pictures all day and I want to share 10 pictures from around the city throughout the day as I find them, or find things and take the picture of them, then I might share more things in that day. But like if it's going to be work related and that sort of stuff, it's like once or twice a day at most, but usually just once.
But you don't schedule posts. You're more spontaneous on Instagram,
I do both. I do both. I love scheduling posts.
Right.
I use the Agorapulse and I like scheduling posts, but most of the time I am doing it as I post. I create it when I'm posting it.
Okay. So what about hashtags? Do you try to use as much as possible, or is it
I always use 30. 30 is the limit, and I always try to use 30. There's no reason not to.
Do you have that in the post, or because some people post it in the first comment below?
Yeah, I post it in the caption, which is the comment that you leave when you post the picture.
Is it anything specific you should think about when you're choosing the hashtags? Is it just the biggest hashtags, or should it be like more specific to what you're doing?
I mean, there's kind of three kinds of hashtags. There's community hashtags, there's generic hashtags, and there's branded hashtags. The community are somewhat specific. The generic are generic. Like the word entrepreneur would be a generic hashtag.
Right.
A specific hashtag would be New York City entrepreneur or New York City entrepreneurs. And maybe there's a bunch of entrepreneurs in New York City that are all using the hashtag New York City entrepreneurs because it's their community hashtag. So it's a little more specific than entrepreneur, but it still has the word entrepreneur in there. And then there's branded hashtags like John Lee Dumas. His show Entrepreneur on Fire is a huge hit in the podcast world. And so if he is on Instagram, he probably sometimes is using hashtag Entrepreneur on Fire. That's very specific to his brand and his show. So I like to use a mix. I have a couple branded hashtags that I like to use. I have plenty of community hashtags that I use, and then I use some generic ones, but I mix it up. I don't have all generic. If generic are when people search for them, they're going to get tons of stuff. I mean, if you do the search, if you search for entrepreneur, you're going to get millions of pieces of content. But if you do a hashtag search for entrepreneurs of New York City, you might only get a couple hundred pieces of content. So it makes your content easier to find when people do searches, and people do search hashtags by looking at a piece of content and clicking the hashtag. And that way all the stuff comes up. So it's good to use branded and community hashtags in addition to the generic.
Do you change it up a lot, or do you usually?
I use a lot of the same.
Is it mostly the same?
Yeah, I use a lot of the same because my content's all about the same stuff. So it just makes sense that I would use the same hashtags quite often.
Right. So what about the visuals in the actual post? How do you look at let's say clickbait, as people could call it, mostly on YouTube, when they are showing something that might not even be in the video, or they just want people to click on it? Is it something that is good to do, just to get views, or is it something that you should avoid at all times?
Well, those are both absolutes. Absolutes are usually wrong. I mean, you could do it a lot or you could do it never. I would say that you just don't do it much. It would depend on what it is. I mean, you know, last week everybody was going on and on about that egg. And a lot of people were, in fact, I created my own piece of content that had to do with the egg in a way that was clickbait-ish. It was, but it's riding a wave. It's riding a wave. It's a popular thing in pop culture. And I participated in it. Would I still do it? I mean, like one piece of content, you know, it would be another thing to do 10 pieces of content about the egg, but one piece of content, you know, it's innocent. It's just one piece of content and I move on to the next thing. But yes, I would say don't, you know, try to take advantage and be obnoxious about what you're trying to do just to get attention, because you're going to attract the wrong people anyway. And it's off message. Like the egg thing has nothing to do with a lot of the other stuff I do. So my crowd's not going to want to see me post a bunch of crap about the egg.
So it's okay to do if it has something to do with what you're actually creating. So instead of using it just for using it.
Yeah. Again, if you're riding a wave, if you know, you're going to post one piece of content about something while you're riding the wave, that's one thing, but it's another to post 20 pieces of content trying to beef up your followers, because most of those people aren't going to matter anyway. They're not going to, people that find you over the egg aren't going to be interested in whether you podcast or not. So, you know, my posting it was more for the entertainment value of my crowd more than it was to get noticed by other people, because the people that notice the egg aren't going to necessarily be interested in podcasting. But the people that are interested in podcasting or live video or whatever, they might be interested in my humorous take on the egg for one piece of content, and then you move on.
So we have another question from the chat about Instagram. What do you think has been the biggest contribution to your social media growth?
Just being real, being consistent, being real, being honest. You know, I don't try to portray myself as something that I'm not. I don't like to boast about things I do or things that I'm doing. I just share it with people, and, you know, either people respond or they don't, but, you know, I don't try to put on a persona, and, just keep it real.
Yeah. So be yourself, create content consistently, and be patient.
Yes.
Right. Great. I'm going to let you go. I'm really thankful for you joining today, and got some good advice. And if people that are watching this or want to follow you, they can follow Todd.Live on. Your name is the same on all platforms, right?
Pretty much, yes. And if it's not, you can search Todd.Live in the search bar and you'll find it.
Right. And the podcast, or one of the podcasts was Grammar School, and the second one was
Entrepreneur Live Video. Both of them are on iTunes.
Right. So I'll put all the info in the description below, so people can find it. Sweet. So once again, thank you very much for joining this live.
Hey, thank you for having me. It was a great pleasure to be one of your first interviews and to hang out with you today. I wish you the very best in your journey to greatness. Yeah, thanks. Thanks a lot. All right. So thanks everyone for watching. Hope you have a good day, and I'll see you in the next episode. All right. Take care, folks. Thank you.